Right now, as you are watching this, something that should not exist is leaving our solar system forever. It came from another star. It traveled for possibly billions of years through absolute darkness just to spend a few months near our sun. And in those few months, it did things that made some of the smartest scientists on Earth stop and stare at their own data in disbelief. A jet that points the wrong way. Chemistry that nature is not supposed to make. An alignment so precise that one Harvard professor calculated the odds of it happening by chance at 0.5%. NASA says it is a comet. But the list of things this comet should not be able to do has now grown to 15. Today we break down exactly what this object did, what the most powerful telescope ever built just found on it, and why two of the biggest names in astronomy are now openly at war over what it really is. Before we begin, have you ever watched a comet or followed the news about this object as it crossed our skies in the past year? Comment where you were and what you thought when you first heard about it. Subscribe for future alerts and help us reach 15,000 likes, so this information reaches someone who may need it. When disaster strikes, you will not have time to search for answers. That is why I created this 3-book survival series, covering earthquakes, hurricanes, and other major emergencies, how to prepare, how to survive, and how to rebuild. Scan the code or check the description. It might be the most important purchase you make this year. But this is not an advertising show, so let us begin. Let me take you back to the beginning. On July 1st of 2025, a survey telescope in Chile called Atlas spotted a faint dot moving across the sky. That part is routine. Telescopes find new comets all the time, but within days, the orbit calculations came back, and they were anything but routine. The orbit was hyperbolic. Let me explain why that single word changed everything. Everything in our solar system, every planet, every asteroid, every comet moves in a closed loop around the sun. A hyperbolic orbit means no loop. It means this object is not from here, it is not staying, and it was never coming back. It is a drifter from interstellar space, only the third one humanity has ever confirmed. They named it 3I Atlas. And here is where the story takes its first strange turn. The first interstellar visitor, Oumuamua, in 2017, was tiny and silent and confusing. The second, Borisov, in 2019, looked like a perfectly normal comet. Scientists exhaled. Maybe interstellar objects are boring after all. Then 3I Atlas arrived, and it was the opposite of boring. It was big, possibly up to 5.6 kilometers across. It was fast, moving at over 150,000 miles per hour, and from the moment we found it, it started behaving in ways that forced astronomers to check their instruments twice. Start with the tail. Every comet you have ever seen works the same way. Sunlight and the solar wind push gas and dust away from the sun, so the tail streams behind like hair in the wind. 3I Atlas repeatedly showed a jet pointing toward the sun, the wrong direction. And after it swung around the sun in late October of 2025, that direction flipped relative to its motion, which killed the easiest excuse, that we were just seeing it from a funny angle. Something in that glow is pushing against the solar wind, and nobody has fully explained what. Then there is the alignment. Astronomers in Tenerife tracked a wobbling jet coming off the nucleus and discovered that the rotation axis of the entire object is pointed almost directly at the sun within 8 degrees. A Harvard astrophysicist named Avi Loeb ran the probability on that. The odds of it happening by random chance, about 0.5%. That alignment gives the object a stable day side and a stable night side, almost as if it is deliberately keeping one face toward the sun. And the orbit is just as suspicious. It travels backwards compared to the planets, yet almost perfectly within the same flat plane the planets live in. The odds of that, roughly 1 in 500. But the detail that truly set the internet on fire is the chemistry. The gas cloud around this object is loaded with nickel while containing almost no iron. Let me explain why that matters. Nickel and iron are born together in dying stars. Nature essentially never separates them. The one place on Earth where you find nickel without iron is in industrial alloy production, in factories. Loeb himself is careful to say this does not prove anything artificial, but he also said in his own words that nature never shows that in any other object. So what do you do with a list like that? If your name is Avi Loeb, former chair of astronomy at Harvard, you start counting. 12 anomalies, then 13, then 15. He even built his own scale. 0 for an ordinary rock, 10 for confirmed alien technology that poses a threat. His rating for 3I Atlas, a 3, maybe a 4, not aliens, but absolutely not normal. And the astronomy establishment pushed back hard. A Princeton astrophysicist named Josh Wynn challenged him directly, arguing that you cannot assign dramatic meaning to anomalies nobody predicted in advance, because that is just retrofitting a story onto coincidences. Loeb fired back with a line that spread everywhere. A predictable anomaly, he said, is an oxymoron. Imagine detectives arriving at a crime scene and ignoring all the unusual evidence because nobody forecast it beforehand. Meanwhile, NASA never moved. The official position is that this is a natural interstellar comet. Unusual? Yes. Alien? No. And here is the uncomfortable truth both sides quietly agree on. We have only ever seen 3 of these objects. 3. There is no such thing as an expert on interstellar visitors because nobody has a big enough sample to be an expert. Everyone is working from a rule book written about rocks from our own backyard. And just when the debate seemed to be fading, 2026 arrived, and the object got stranger. In February, observations confirmed that even as it moves away from the sun into the cold where comets are supposed to go quiet, 3I Atlas is still spraying water across the solar system. Then in May, scientists measured that water, and it turned out to be wrong. The isotopes, the chemical fingerprint of where water was born, match nothing in our solar system. Because of course they do not. This water did not form here. It formed around another star, possibly before our sun even existed. Then, on June 4th of 2026, the James Webb Space Telescope delivered the headline, "The first direct detection of methane on an interstellar object ever." Methane, on top of a coma already dominated by carbon dioxide, on top of isotope ratios pointing to a birthplace in a cold so deep we can barely model it. Think about what that means. We cannot fly to another star. But another star just mailed us a piece of itself, and for a few precious months, we got to read the label. So where does that leave us? Here is the honest answer. The mainstream view is that 3I Atlas is a natural comet from an ancient and very strange star system, and its anomalies are what happens when you point instruments calibrated for familiar objects at a genuinely alien one. Exotic chemistry, not exotic engineering. Loeb's answer is simpler. Fine, maybe. But when 0.5% coincidences stack on top of 1 in 500 coincidences on top of chemistry nature does not produce, you do not sneer. You look. Because the cost of being wrong in one direction is embarrassment. The cost of being wrong in the other direction is missing the most important discovery in human history. And now the window is closing. Every day, 3I Atlas grows fainter. Within a couple of years, it will be beyond the reach of every telescope we own, a 7-billion-year-old traveler disappearing back into the dark it came from. Whatever it is, whatever it was, we will never see it again. The question is no longer whether it will keep its secrets. The question is whether we learned fast enough while it was here. What happens next is a race against geometry. Observatories around the world are squeezing out the final images, the final spectra, the final measurements of the strangest object humanity has ever studied, and there is more data still coming. So if you want to know what the last chapters of this story reveal, subscribe and turn on notifications, because we are tracking every new release. The visitor is leaving, but the argument it started is not going anywhere, and something tells me the sky is not done surprising us.